In big and small communities across the province, one notable thing about this municipal election cycle is incumbents deciding not to run again. With us now for some sense of why, let's welcome in Peterborough, Ontario, Mayor Diane Therrien. In Waterloo, Ontario, Mayor Dave Jaworski. And from City Hall in the provincial capital, Denzil Minnan-Wong, Deputy Mayor and Toronto City Councillor for Don Valley East. And we're delighted to have the three of you on our program tonight and get a better understanding of why. Well, let's go through a bit of a checklist here. Almost a third of Toronto City Council not seeking re-election. Half of Kingston City Council not seeking re-election. Mayors in Ottawa, Vaughan and Hamilton, at least a couple of whom surely would have been re-elected, not running again. And you three, not running again. So let's find out. Diane, how come?
Well, I mean, there's many reasons. It's been an extraordinarily challenging term. I think all of us can relate to. When we campaigned back in 2018, nobody foresaw a global pandemic that would sort of derail a lot of what we were hoping to achieve over the term. And so that's part of it. I mean, there's also circumstances unique to my experience in Peterborough with being a young woman and some of the challenges that I've experienced with staff and other councillors in terms of a level of ageism and sexism that isn't uncommon for young women in all workplaces, but in politics especially.
I should say you batted that back on Twitter so magnificently using a wonderful word that I can't repeat here, but captured a lot of attention. Let's put it that way on Twitter. Do you think that helped sort of put whoever was responsible for all that garbage in his place so that perhaps your successors can have a better shot at this?
I hope so. I mean, I did get such good feedback from people all over the country and the states too, saying we wish more elected officials would speak up against this kind of behavior. It's really toxic. It's really detrimental to democracy, and it shouldn't be tolerated. It should be called out in the strongest possible terms, which is, I guess, what I did.
Yes, you did. Dave Jaworski, how come you're not running again?
Well, Steve, it all started about 9 years ago when a friend asked me, why don't you run for mayor? And it all ended last December when another friend asked me, why are you still running? And the question why is always a great question. And in the first case, I decided I had a lot to contribute to the community. I call it the ultimate community job, being mayor. And in the case of why, reality is last September, I had my campaign theme all done. I was putting the campaign team back together. And then I started doing some self-reflection and thought, you know what? I didn't have any experience. I went straight to mayor and of a great city of Waterloo, and another person can do it. And we can pass the baton and have had 8 great years and to celebrate that, Steve.
Okay, but let me follow up. Clearly, you were ready to get the band back together again, take it on the road. But something must have changed to get you to change your mind. What changed?
Well, Steve, it's just reflecting on how much time it takes. This is a great job, but it's an all-encompassing job. And I think that that's something that you need to reflect on. None of us are getting any younger and have good opportunities to spend more time with the people behind me here and enjoy that. And the reality is I can still walk around town. Most people probably think I'm still mayor next year yet. So I'll have some great conversations and a lot to reflect on.
Well, I do hear from Mayor Bonnie Crombie in Mississauga that lots of people there still think that Hazel McCallion is the mayor, even though she hasn't been for quite some time. So yes, get ready for that. That's probably coming. You mentioned age. Denzil Minnan-Wong, how old were you when you first got elected?
30.
30. So you've been at this for a while. How come you've decided to stand down?
28 years. I've been on almost every major committee. I've been deputy mayor for 8 years, and so it was time for me to move on and seek new challenges. I found that especially in Toronto, council and the public service are becoming more left wing. So you're seeing anything from the nonsense to renaming Dundas to defunding the police when we need more police to putting bike lanes everywhere and congestion rising. I wanted to spend more time with my family. I think you'd find that as a common thread amongst all of us. You never get that time back. And while I enjoy campaigning, going into campaign is particularly hard on families, and that also factored into my decision.
Okay, but let me, we have to point out that a couple of the most prominent so-called left-wing members of Toronto City Council are also standing down, Cressy and Layton. So this is not some, I mean, you have difficulty with some of the things the left wing is doing. I'm sure they had difficulty with some of the things you were doing. So that's a common element. Is there anything particular about your, I guess, age and stage of life that has made you say, I've had enough of this?
Well, after doing it for 28 years, Steve, you've pretty much done everything. So it's time to do something different. I think everybody has their own sort of formula for why they're leaving, and they weight different things in different ways. But fundamentally, they just want to do something different, and they may not be as, let's say, inspired when they started as when they're leaving.
Gotcha. One of the things, Mayor Therrien, that I guess I have heard from so many municipal politicians in particular over the last couple of years is we never got elected to have to make the kinds of massive decisions that are connected to COVID-19, and that has just taken a much more significant toll than we had anticipated. So let me ask you, the COVID-related decisions that you and your council have had to make, and presumably a lot of the intense blowback that some of that has got you from some members of your community, how much of a factor was that in your decision?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a factor. The decisions, I mean, a lot of them, as you know, came down from the provincial government. But COVID definitely exacerbated what was, a pre-existing sort of toxicity in politics, which has always been there. But the increased responsibility of dealing with COVID, we've also had, the windstorm and the May 2-4 long weekend that rocked Peterborough. So that was another state of emergency we had to declare. So there's been a lot, of extra workload. And I think that's a common theme across municipalities. We're dealing with not just COVID, but, provincial downloads and an increasing expectation from constituents that you're accessible all the time. There's so many ways to reach those of us that are on social media or, when I'm out walking the dogs and that kind of thing. And it becomes, as was said, an all-encompassing job. And, and COVID certainly didn't help that. And it's been very challenging. We know that, municipalities can't run deficits. COVID hit us all really hard financially. It's going to take us a long time to recover. So there's a lot of challenges in it, but there's, also a lot of other reasons why I chose not to run again.
Sure.
The three progressive women on Peterborough City Council, none of us are running again. So that also says something about the culture at City Hall and City Council here.
Okay, follow up on that. What do you think it says?
Well, it's just been extremely challenging to try to push some things forward without staff support. The role of councillor in Peterborough is part-time, as it is in most communities across Ontario, but it ostensibly part-time because it really is such a huge commitment when you have boards and committees and then, council on top of your constituent work. And then you're not actually able to push forward a lot of the policy development that you are elected on when you run on a platform and you talk to constituents about what they want to see, because our councillors have no administrative staff support, no research staff support. A lot of them work full time, and so then to try to put everything into City Council as well, they're just burnt out.
Mayor Jaworski, how much did a once-in-a-century pandemic affect your decision to leave?
Well, Steve, I would say it wasn't really that stressful. What it was more frustrating and sad. And the reason why I say that is it's hard to make decisions when you have no data. I remember in the very earliest of the days after the state of emergency was declared in March of 2020 that we were talking about masks. And, we were concerned that, well, what could we do with masks? Would people now put them on? Would they understand that they can't touch their mouth with their fingers that are not clean? And then there was the issue of the masks. Were they readily available? Would it steal from what our medical services needs? Just a whole bunch of things that, the supply chain was crashing. Goods weren't being moved. We didn't know if people know how to use them. And we had to make decisions on things like that throughout the pandemic that we're making with little or no data, sometimes just seeing what other jurisdictions did and trying it here. And that was, like I said, very frustrating. And then the deaths of our community one thing as a municipal politician, we're the closest to the people. So when you're pushing the grocery cart or walking the dog, as you've heard, you see people who knew those people who died. And, it's very sad for the community, but we all need to get through it. And for me, that was the challenge there. But I would say in my first term, I did have the LRT construction of Waterloo Region, where it's like open heart surgery on your city, and that was a challenge. The second term was the pandemic. I said, you know what, I need to run again to have a good third term, and I realized, you know what, there's always going to be challenges, and it's really the time to pass the baton on things like climate change to a new mayor.
Gotcha. Denzel, I want to ask you, and in doing so, I'm going to assume you voted twice for Doug Ford in the last two provincial elections. And having said that, immediately after he got elected the first time, back in 2018, he doubled your workload, right? He cut City Council basically in half, going from 47 to 25 members, and the number of constituents that you had to serve pretty much doubled. I wonder what kind of contribution that made to your decision to leave this time.
It didn't. I have more constituents for sure. There was a bigger workload, but the workload didn't really affect my decision not to run or not. It was other things. So, for example, you were speaking what happened during COVID. I realized during COVID, because I got to spend a lot more time with my family, how much time I was away from my family. And I thought to myself, as we moved out of COVID back to a normal situation, that I didn't want to give that time up again, because that's time you never get back. I've got a young family. So the idea of the extra work didn't bother me. When you have twice as many constituents, you can't spend as much time with them. But you adapt. We got more staff. And so that really didn't have a significant impact on my decision. It was other things. This
is, admittedly, Denzel, a bit of a smart aleck question, but I've often heard politicians over the years say, I'm standing down now because I want to spend more time with my family. Are you sure your family wants to spend more time with you?
Well, that's a really interesting question. Steve, I'll also tell you, and I think, my colleagues would understand this. When you go into a campaign, you leave your family for about 2 months, right? It's like you have your breakfast, you come home late at night for dinner, but for most of the day, you're gone. And so while I think all of us probably love campaigning because we're talking to our constituents, it's particularly hard on your kids and your wife. And, it's starting right now. So all those councillors and elected officials right now, they're starting to pound the pavement the day after Labor Day, and they're not seeing their families. It's a stressful situation, so you need a very understanding family. I was, of course, being facetious. I'm sure your family's going to be thrilled to have you around more often. Well, I'm not so sure about that. We'll have to wait and see. Okay. That's an open question. We'll get back to us on that. I did talk to Mayor Therrien a moment ago about some of the hostility she received while she was in office, and the very notable response that she made on social media to get some of those people off her back. You've had the same kind of stuff happen. And I want to put this, Sheldon, top of page 2 here. Your office sent us some tweets that you have received. And here's one of them. And, this being a family program, we're going to blur out some of the rougher language. But here's somebody saying, deeply enjoying the replies to DMW's, Denzelman and Wong's tweet about not running again. Such an F face and so deservedly hated. See you in hell. How much of this is now just a regular everyday occurrence in the job of a local politician in this province? It happens far too often. It has changed over my, career, 28 years at City Hall. Dave Chappelle referred to Twitter as, I think, the bathroom wall of the internet. After a while, you kind of get used to it, but you never really do. It's hardest on your family when they see these type of posts. But people feel free to say these things these days, and they're not as respectful of other opinions. And I think that a lot of folks would look at that and say, I don't want any of that nonsense, and they won't run. And it's bad for the democratic process.
Mayor Therrien, there is absolutely no question whatsoever that social media is harder on female politicians than it is on male politicians. I think that is a given. Having said that, what do you think? I mean, you've been through it. What advice would you give to your successors? And presumably there will still be women on Peterborough City Council after the next election. Is that right?
I hope so. We do have some fabulous candidates running. It is unfortunate, though. I have talked to numerous women who wanted to run, but sort of see the kind of toxicity and vitriol on social media, especially, which again isn't direct to women, but there's sort of sometimes a different flavor towards women. And they said, I'm not going to do that. And so I'm hoping that there's some of the good candidates that are running do get elected.
So what advice would you give them? Because
there is, I think, women running in pretty much almost every ward.
What advice would you give them on how to handle the kind of garbage that they too often encounter on social media?
I mean, you got to be tough. I think that, there's some members of the council that just don't use social media. It's sometimes a generational thing. It's hard to avoid when you're younger. But I would just say, if you can get somebody to, I turn off replies to some tweets because I just don't need to deal with the anonymous bots, which is the majority of that kind of stuff. Have a good support network around you that will, that you can kind of laugh about it. Like I have archived a lot of these tweets and emails. They're going to go in my memoir. They're like, in 5 years, I'll look back and laugh at it. But the advice would basically just be like, if you're pissing people off, you're doing the right thing. And you're never going to make everybody happy. So just stick to your morals and your integrity, and people respect that more than if you try to please everyone.
Did you find those kinds of ugly comments particularly debilitating to your efforts?
I mean, in some ways, the bigger challenges was dealing with like internal council politics and ego, less so than because the people throwing shade on social media, I don't know them. A lot of them don't live in Peterborough, so they don't really matter. But it's the dealing with the internal politics of council, which we can all relate to, is the biggest challenge for sure.
Mayor Jaworski, I guess all of us are hoping that 4 years down the road, in other words, not this municipal election coming in October, but the one 4 years hence, COVID is going to be, we hope, more under control. And I wonder whether you think that it's possible things may go back to quote unquote normal, whatever that looks like, and therefore the really, really tough aspects of your job may start to disappear over the years.
Steve, I'm not sure that will take place. We're going to look for a new normal for sure, just based on climate change and climate change adaptation. The world is continuously changing. If you roll back 10 years or 20 years, you'll see radical differences, and we're going to continue on with that. But certainly we'll have COVID in the rearview mirror, and we can look forward to making sure that we create a great place. My experience has been a bit different. I've been blessed with a wonderful council, 5 women, 3 men, and 4 of my councilors had kids aged 10 and under when we were elected. And I really think that's a wonderful council and a great way for decision making. And I think what really bothers me about the old days of the keyboard warriors who are after you on Twitter, that we're now seeing that evolve into in-person things. So things that you wouldn't say before to a person's face, you'd say on Twitter. And that seems to be evolving rapidly over the past 18 months. But if I was to give advice to people who are running for council, it's don't engage on Twitter. Put out your own messaging. And if something comes back very harsh, just leave it alone, and you'll learn from your experience on how to deal with those things.
Well, let's pick up on that. Let's spend a few minutes here just talking about, because we see this all over the province. There are lots of places where lots of politicians are being acclaimed. No one wants a job. No one wants to run against them. This has, for all of the reasons that you've already described, this has become a very tough job at a very tough time. Denzel, start us off here. What could be done to make the job more appealing so that maybe more people will want it going forward?
Well, I think that there's been a lot of discussion about the compensation packages that some councillors receive. That could be made better, and you might be able to get different councillors
Now, having
I think
said that, you make more than an MPP does.
I don't know, how much does an MPP make?
I think you make 125, and I think they make 110. Now, of course, they get extra if they're in cabinet or if they're in a parliamentary assistant or on a committee or something. But the base salary of a member of the Ontario legislature is less than a Toronto City councillor. That's not to say you're making too much. Might be an argument that they're making too little. But anyway, I interrupted.
Well, I think that's an interesting discussion to look at. Are people not signing up because of the compensation? For me, it wasn't an issue. It's more about public service. Incumbency is a very strong tool or benefit that incumbents have. So running against an incumbent becomes a real challenge. And so addressing that, should we look at term limits? We might have to revisit that, given, as you say, so many people are not running again, or so many people so many candidates don't have competition. That's because maybe they don't think they're going to have a chance. So why even bother? There's the civility in the electoral process. It can be a pretty mean place. We've already discussed that. So there are a number of factors in there. I think that, and the other thing that has been talked about before, Steve, not recently, is you could actually have term limits sort of imposed or by having political parties. So political parties would, I think, give a shelf life to a councillor because it'd be belonging to a political party, and I think you'd have a cycle of new councillors coming in more frequently.
Mayor Therrien, let me pick up on that term limit angle with you, because I saw you nod your head when Denzel mentioned term limits. You only served one term as mayor, so even if you had a term limit of 2, you could have gone again. Do you like the idea?
I love it. I've spoken about term limits since day one. I did one term as councillor and then one term as mayor. I beat incumbents both times, so it is possible. But I always said too, when I first ran for mayor, if I do this, it will only be for 2 terms, because I strongly believe in having term limits. I think the other thing, the compensation piece that was touched upon, historically, council was a volunteer commitment. If you go back to the days of yore, which limited who could run. And there's still, I find, a holdover in that attitude of, yes, it's public service, but it is a job. And so when you're paying councillors who, again, are mostly part-time, in Peterborough, I would love to see 1 full-time councillor per ward instead of 2 part-time councillors per ward. But when you're paying people less than a living wage to do that, it precludes young people, poor people, single parents, from wanting to run or being able to run. If you need to pay for childcare while you're campaigning, if you then need to pay for childcare while you're sitting on a police board meeting for 8 hours or council meeting for 8 hours, and all your wages are then going to that, it's not worth it. And I've had many people talk to me about that they would like to do it, but it's just not worth their time, especially when you look at all the different responsibilities that are added on, and then on top of the toxicity that we've talked about.
Those are some good suggestions that I hope somebody in the provincial government is listening to and may make those changes to make the next generation of politicians maybe take a second look at this job. Diane Therrien, Denzel Minnan-Wong, Dave Jaworski, I want to thank the 3 of you for coming onto our program and sharing your views tonight. Be well with whatever comes next for all of you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Steve.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.